A very warm welcome to yet another Kumekucha video. Information and analysis that is very difficult to find anywhere else. I recommend that you subscribe and you hit the bell button so that you receive notifications every time I have a new video. Karibu sana and enjoy.
The government of Kenya cannot and will not stand by as its démarches are ignored and its territorial integrity is infringed upon and its sovereign resources are carved out and shared out by an ungracious and unbrotherly neighbor acting to satisfy the greed of commercial interests resident in foreign lands. Kenya would like to remind the government of Somalia, and by extension the international community, that Kenya's magnanimity towards its neighbors must never be taken for granted. Kenya has paid an unparalleled price for its generosity and hospitality without ever asking for anything in return. The lives of Kenyans lost owing to Kenya's commitment to international peace and security remain a fresh memory in the minds of Kenyans and a painful reminder of the high cost of good neighborliness and international corporate responsibility.
Over the weekend, a very serious crisis emerged in Kenya and is still developing. Indeed, it is a crisis that is more serious than most. It is serious because it is going to have far-reaching economic and political implications in our country, Kenya. And yet, admittedly, it is also quite a complex crisis. I am of course talking about the border dispute between Kenya and Somalia over Indian Ocean waters. Indian Ocean waters off the coast of the two countries that are oil-rich. And things exploded on Saturday when Kenya recalled its ambassador in Somalia, in Mogadishu, Somalia, and asked the Somalian ambassador in Kenya to leave the country immediately. The Somalia government has not been cowed. They have responded by asking all Kenyans in Somalia to leave the country. And they have also included Kenyan soldiers of the Kenya Defense Forces serving in AMISOM. And the Somali government has gone beyond that and made what appears to be a very curious comment and caution against the Kenyan government. They have asked the Kenyan government to remember that there are hundreds of thousands of Somalians who are Kenyan citizens. And the Somali government has told the Kenyan government to remember that and be very wary. What do they mean? Now, those who understand Kenya well will immediately tell you that the Somali government, and indeed the country, will suffer greatly economically as a result of this dispute, this diplomatic standoff. That may be true. However, what Kenyans do not know is that currently the trade balance between Somalia and Kenya favors, wait for this one, not Kenya, it favors Somalia. 2017 figures show that in that year, Kenya imported goods from Somalia worth Kenya shillings 152.7 billion, while Kenyan exports to Somalia were only 52.8 billion. Now. Isn't that a baffling statistic? Anyway, we'll analyze all that. I'll break it down for you. We'll really go very deep into this so that we understand exactly what is happening. And even more importantly, what to expect going forward. Because this is indeed a crisis bigger than most Kenyans may realize. And we'll do that immediately after the short upcoming commercial break from the people who keep this channel going and improving all the time. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, it is true that Somalia depends on Kenya for a lot of things. Indeed, there are those who say Somalia's internal security, and indeed entire security, heavily relies on Kenya. That is true. In fact, the Somali government is actually run from Nairobi. When you are running a government, or when you're trying to run a government, there's some things you need to do in a secure location, where you are sure, at least relatively sure, that you'll not have explosions happening all over the place and terror attacks, every other day. It is also true that a lot of humanitarian efforts going on in Somalia, are run from Nairobi. Bottom line, a huge impact is being felt right inside Somalia as a result of the latest diplomatic tiff, between the two countries. However, on the other hand, Kenya has also come to rely on Somalia for very many things. For starters, powerful people within government, very many of them, have been made multi-billionaires by Somalia, or the Somalia connection. I have covered this intensively in previous videos. Smuggling of sugar into Kenya, smuggling of other goods that do not pass any ports in Kenya, that come in through the porous border with Somalia, and are sold at a huge markup, making overnight millionaires, and indeed making overnight billionaires. This explains the current trade imbalance, which I mentioned earlier, where in 2017, for instance, Kenya imported goods worth 152.7 billion Kenya shillings from Somalia, while exporting only 52.8 billion, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you consider food and most consumer products used in Somalia are sourced in Kenya. Bottom line, both countries will suffer. So it's just a question of who will suffer more, who will feel more pain. And my point is, the answer is not as obvious, as some Kenyans may think. Now on your screens right now, you should see a map that shows the area that is in dispute. And what you'll notice immediately, is the fact that the dispute emerges from different interpretations by the two different governments. But what you will not see in the map that is directly linked to this dispute is the historical background. And in my view, this has a lot to do with the thinly veiled threat that the Somali government has issued to the Kenyan government about people of Somali origin who are Kenyan citizens, living in Kenya. Now, I've talked about this at length before, but very quickly, before independence, the British had promised the Somali people one unified country, where all territories where Somalis live would be put together into one country. However, at independence, the founding fathers of this nation put pressure on the British government, and the British reneged on that promise to the Somalis. This resulted in the Shifter War in the 60s. And to date, the Somali flag still has 5 stars, 5-pointed stars, signifying all the regions inhabited by Somali people. And one of those stars signifies a substantial part of Kenya, almost a third of the entire country. And so, there's always been a feeling, of a greater Somalia, as people refer to it, in the hearts and minds of many Somali people. Deep inside, many of them feel they have been denied what is quite rightfully theirs. It is these kinds of emotions and feelings, carried over many years and carried into the latest dispute that make this issue very sensitive. Now, the Somali government, and this is very instructive, have strongly denied, the accusation by the Kenyan government that they've already auctioned off, parts of the disputed area on the Indian Ocean. They've already auctioned it off to prospectors, oil drilling companies. And word on the street in Mogadishu is actually that the Kenyan government is using this, as an excuse to do something else. Others are saying this is a case of Big Brother flexing their muscles against a smaller brother. Although admittedly, Somalia is no ordinary small brother, because Somali terrorists have caused a lot of damage in the country called Kenya. Indeed, at one point, these terror attacks into Kenya almost brought the big brother to their knees, literally. In fact, because of the terror threat, this current tiff between Kenya and Somalia is not just a tiff between two East African countries. Yeah, it is an international crisis, because the fight against terrorism is international. And indeed, the suggestion from some quarters is that the Kenyan government wants to draw in the international community with a certain objective in mind. Of course, these allegations and counter-allegations will become clearer going forward as the crisis unfolds. But what is super fascinating here is that recent economic developments have completely changed the environment, so that economically, Kenya may not bear so much of the brunt from this latest fight with Somalia. For instance, Somalia now imports a lot of its miraa, cat, from neighboring Ethiopia rather than Kenya. Indeed, latest statistics show that Somalia is not the number one buyer of Kenyan miraa. It's actually fifth, after Uganda, Tanzania, Egypt, and Rwanda, in that order. So what that means is that the impact on the local miraa industry may not be as large as some may think. On the other end of the scale, the rich and powerful in Kenya may not feel the impact so much. Why? Because of recent revelations by the United Nations, damning reports on funny, dodgy things going on in Somalia, the illegal trade that has benefited the rich in Kenya has reduced dramatically. And then you need to add the fight against corruption, which has done a lot to curb and limit this illegal trade, illegal imports from Somalia in recent times. This information may make some of the very shocking analysis emerging now more believable. There are analysts who are very sure that this latest tiff between the Kenyan government and the Somalian government will result ultimately in some very major shifts and realignments in the region. And some are even saying those major shifts and realignments may include the withdrawal of Kenyan troops in Somalia. Now, for those who understand the Kenya-Somali situation very well, that is a very alarming analysis. But I guess we will just have to wait and see how this develops. Until next time, this is Kshs, Kumekucha.